You are now listening to the Pelicans post-game report. Flash Report.
Yo, what up with you? We back at it again to talk some Pelicans basketball. Shout out to PPR, Big Q in DC. I am Lexxah Drew, the voice of the PPR Flash Reports. Kudos to all the listeners. Appreciate y'all tuning in. So, the Pelicans had a depressing loss against the Phoenix Suns on a night where the SKC was sold out, the skeleton theme was in full effect, and everyone was ready to erupt to a stellar performance that would lead to a win. But the basketball producers decided to go in a different direction with the script. That is, if they actually existed. Look, this was a bad loss for the Pels, much like the Clippers game. And it's not so much that the Pelicans lost, but in the manner and the fashion in which they lost. And there is some reoccurring trends that continue to come up with the Pels. And that is the Pelicans really have a knack for making the game difficult. Like, nothing comes easy. I mean, maybe the blowout wins, those are easy because you're up by so much, but the game in a lot of facets, it's still being played just difficult. Everything is just difficult. Let's get into it. One thing that I noticed right off top is that the Pelicans don't take advantage of mismatches, which is a huge part of the game. In that Suns game, we saw that Bradley Beal and Grayson Allen were actually guarding Zion. Let me say those names again. Bradley Beal and Grayson Allen. That is a huge mismatch. Anytime Zion had those guys pinned, our backcourt did not feed the ball down to Zion at all. And the thing is, there was that window. You have a window to get that ball down there when in the post player has their man pinned. And we not one time got the ball down to Zion. And this also happens to Jonas in some cases. Like, we have to recognize when those guys have their man pinned, because those are easy buckets. We should not be passing up easy buckets, especially when we have a juggernaut talent, generational talent in Zion, and a skilled big man in Jonas Valanciunas. That should never happen. But the Pels have been very inconsistent in feeding that ball into the post. And one thing that we have to remember is that, this three-point shooting is still new for this Pelicans team. It's not first nature. It's not the norm. This is new. This is a transition. So we are not known to be a three-point shooting team. Shooting three-pointers consistently is not our bread and butter. The inside game is the bread and butter of this team, and it always has. We're still trying to perfect that three-point shooting. Yes, we broke records. Yes, we were feeling it hot from behind the arc, but that hasn't been consistent. And the league, the teams around the league, they are not preparing. They're preparing for the Pels as far as the inside game. They're preparing to guard Zion to keep him from getting inside, because they're willing to live with guys shooting from behind the arc. And that's much what happened in the Suns game. That's exactly what happened. It's almost like, we gonna call y'all's bluff, because we don't feel like you all are going to shoot the ball like you did against the Charlotte Hornets. For this team, I don't think it's so much about the high volume of shooting threes, but more so having good shot selection with the three and taking it when it's a good time to take it, not forcing it. That's the last thing that we want to do. We don't want to get away from what consistently works for this team. And if the three ball is not dropping, we don't need to force that. We need to understand mismatches and really understand, just matchups, period, before the game. That's doing your homework. That's knowing what the situation is before the situation even arrives. It's being proactive and not reactive. The Zion keep away seems to be a thing since the Alvin Gentry days. Look, Zion cannot continue to play in these games and go long stretches without touching the ball. Like, his involvement and his touches and his shot attempts is huge for this team. It's a huge difference maker. Like, we have to utilize that more. Zion is a generational juggernaut talent. And we're not using all of his gifts. I mean, even with him not having a 10-footer or a 15-footer, this guy is, his touch around the basket and his efficiency is ridiculous. Like, he has to get a higher volume of attempts up. And I think a lot of fans would feel good about that. Willie Green stated in his presser that they have to do a better job of incorporating and getting Zion more acclimated into the game, getting his touches in the beginning of the game. And they have not been doing that. Now, we've seen where Zion has gotten into a rhythm, and then Willie Green takes him out at the 6-minute mark. Really, I wish he would have talked about that, because that right there needs to change as well. Not just him getting touches at the beginning of the game, but hey, why don't you extend his minutes in the first quarter so that he can get more into a rhythm, because we don't want him to get more into a rhythm and then be neutralized once he gets hot, and you sub him out at the 6-minute mark with Trey Murphy, and then you decide to bring him back in at 2:30 or 1:20 at the end of the first quarter. Like, now that's something right there that, I wish he also would have mentioned, because that's a game killer. That hiatus does not allow him to get into a really good rhythm. And that's really been happening to him. I really do not understand that substitution. Not one bit. But good things happen when the ball is in Zion's hands. For the most part, he does make good decisions. He does share the ball. He's looking for the open guy. His gravity is still in full effect, and it still works. Point Zion still works. We understand that B.I., 90% of the time, he has the ball in his hands. So B.I. is getting acclimated in the game because the ball is in his hands. Borrego said that on Media Day. He said, or Brandon stated that Borrego was going to have the ball in his hands a lot. And we've seen that. But now it's like, hey, I guess by, B.I. not having it going sometimes, look, what's the plan B? And it really shouldn't be a plan B. It really should be a plan A. But we'll see if what Willie Green stated in his presser, first, if it will be implemented, and if the team will be consistent in going to Zion immediately instead of waiting till later in the game to get him acclimated into the game. That is definitely something that I would have to see. I don't know what the plays are for this Pelicans team, but when they are in trouble offensively, they really need some plays to get them back on track. That's why you have plays. And it seems like they never use any of them. If they do, it seems like they are predictable. They're easily neutralized by the opponent team, by the opponent coach. But we have to get more creative. The coaching staff, Willie Green, has to get more creative with calling plays. And we all already know about making the adjustments, but at some point in time, Willie Green has to start playing chess instead of checkers. See, the Suns, they were ready for the Pels. I mean, they stepped on the Pels and, I mean, just kept the foot on the gas, kept the foot on the neck. I mean, it was brutal. And that's not the only team that has done this, but we still got to work on that counter, man. That counter punch. You got to have a counter punch. I mean, that has to be perfected. We need to see more of Trigger Trey and Jayhawk in the lineup together to help spread the floor. Got to have those two in there. And then Dyson and Herb, the Dyson and Herb lineups don't work. The team is in a negative net rating. And so you can't have two defensive players in the lineup. You have to have shooting out there. We got to spread the floor. You know, and if you're not going to have Trigger Trey in the starting lineup, at least put lineups out there that make sense. Because if you don't, and we know that Willie Green relies on defense every single time, which I'm pretty sure at this point he's not going to change, but it's like, dude, like sometimes a good defense is a good offense. Sometimes when your defensive players cannot stop anyone, it's okay to put shooting out there. Because the thing is like you're not stopping anyone. You're not slowing anyone down. Dyson Daniels did not do that with Devin Booker. Neither did Herb Jones. So what do? Hey, man, it's about to be a shootout. And that's okay. Because this is an offensive league, as well as a star-driven league. People want to see shooting anyway. But that's all I got for y'all. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Put in the comments how you think the Pels can make the game easy and not difficult. Again, appreciate y'all tuning in. I am Lexxah Drew, and I'm out, y'all.
Subscribe now and stay up to date for all things New Orleans Pelicans.